stream. And we are live on the live stream. We are good to go there. All right. Well, let's get here and let's start going, my friends. Well, good morning, podcasters. Today is Friday, June the 5th, 2026. And today we're going into the mailbag. We've got 5 real podcasting questions to talk through together. A co-host quitting after 3 years, beginner gear on a budget, a client with impossible production expectations, how to create smoother podcast transitions, and whether hosts notice flaws that listeners don't. So for everybody listening on Clubhouse, hit the share button, top right-hand side of your screen, and share however Clubhouse lets you. To join us live, go to podcastingmorningchat.com/join us. So give us about 30 seconds and we will get this thing going. Thank you so much for being here today.
The Podcasting Morning Show is powered by Ironic Media, helping podcasters launch, polish, and grow great shows. And by Content Creators Accountant, helping creators build real business behind their content.
Well, good morning again, everybody. Welcome to the Podcasting Morning Show. Thank you so much for being here. I am your host today. Mark is traveling, so he is going to be, I see he's in the audience. So Mark, we're glad to see you there, but he'll be doing some traveling today. So DR and I are going to hold the fort down here on the live stream. Also joining me, we've got Janaid. We've got, like I said, DR and BC Babbles and Sid Meadows. And then join us from the audience, we have Dan Schultz and Tide, aka Nikki. So thank you so much for joining us today. And before we get started here, I want to play this week's submission from a spotlight. So we're going to be talking about some great mailbag questions today, but I wanted to start off with this. Now, this one is from the Boomer Bunker. And John Domingo, who oftentimes joins the audience here, and he's been on stage with us a few times as well, he sent this in to us, and this is what he says. He says, the Boomer Bunker is an unfiltered conversation show where no topic is off the table. Politics, culture, and whatever news is breaking that day, delivered with zero corporate polish. It's adult themed, has adult language from a Boomer and Gen X perspective. So let me go ahead and play his submission right now.
Welcome to the Boomer Bunker podcast, straight out of Jersey, where we don't sugarcoat a damn thing. We call it like we see it. Loud, proud, with a side of attitude. Politics, culture, everyday nonsense. Forget about it. We're diving in. If you want polite and polished, go listen somewhere else. But if you want real talk, Jersey grit, and laughs, this is your spot. The Boomer Bunker podcast. Jersey tough, Boomer bold. Check us out at boomerbunker.com or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
What a great one. And you can just hear.
Great.
Oh, it sure does, DR. And his co-host, I listened to his show in full disclosure. His co-host, Kate, has a great, they call her the Duchess, actually. She's got a great voice and just a fantastic thing. Did anybody want to make a comment about that spotlight submission? Go ahead, DR.
Well, I think this is speaking to me because I am a Boomer, and I think this is going to be right up my alley. I gotta tune in. Now, is it what days does he drop? What days does he publish?
So he does a live stream on Monday and Thursday evenings. And then what I've noticed, he usually has the podcast, because he does it podcast. It's usually released the next day. But I think he goes from 6:30 to 8 on YouTube, Rumble, and X, I believe he said. So it's pretty, he also has a Discord channel. I mean, he's got all kinds of stuff. You can find him at boomerbunker.com, actually. But great friend of the program here, John. So thanks for sending that to us.
He's a family member, so it feels good to let him shine.
He absolutely is. Now, I've asked DR this morning to help me this morning. So DR is going to read the first question here in a second, but this one's emotional. And this one's not just about strategy. It's actually about losing a creative partner. And this particular one, the show's getting momentum and all that sort of thing. So without further ado, DR, if you want to jump right into our first question, and then I'm going to open it up to everybody for your comments, questions, concerns, and what we can do to help this person.
Right. So This writer writes, "We are coming up on our 3-year anniversary of the show, and we are finally starting to grow. Uh, uh, we are with a great network. We've been getting some great fans, doing fun collaborations with other shows like Live, Laugh, Larceny. We are even participating in a live event this week. But this last weekend, my co-host said that she needs to step away. I've kind of wondered if this was coming for a while, and I understand that and I understand and I'm respectful of her decision, but it still sucks. I'm struggling with the decision to keep the podcast going, trying to find a new co-host or pivot into something totally new. I'm wondering who has had something similar happen and what did you do? This is a tough one.
This is a tough one. And when I saw this, I was like, man, this is a really tough question. And so let me ask the room this. Let's get started with this first. Who here has had a co-host, producer, editor, or creative partner leave? Does anybody want to comment about that? I've not experienced this. So for me, this one is sort of outside my normal area of things that I've done before, but I know this isn't something that doesn't happen sometimes. Does anybody want to chime in? If you want to chime in, go ahead, BC. I see you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm curious, did they mention whether or not this co-host has been there since the very beginning, or has she been a recent addition? I'm wondering if that might be a caveat to help him decide one way or the other.
It doesn't say in all it says is that they have started to gain some traction, a lot of fans and everything. So it feels like they're established as a duo.
And
Yeah,
so
BC, that would be my suspicion is they probably started this together, reading that into the question.
Gotcha. So I see his concern for sure. If he's worried that with that established relationship and those numbers, if she goes away, then those numbers will drop. So that might be a great sabbatical opportunity, honestly.
That's a very good point, BC. When you're in that position, the thing that worries me about taking a sabbatical is if you're in a place where you're seeing momentum, that's an audience that you're building. If you stop creating content, you stop putting stuff out there, that might actually work against you, because from what I've seen is people grow accustomed to you being there right there. They get the day that you come out normally, all those sort of things. Like right now, I can tell you on my daily show, we've actually thought about going to 5 days instead of 7. And my big concern with that is people are used to hearing my sparkling voice 7 days a week.
You've trained your audience, basically. So I don't know,
So I'm wondering
and
if the timeline will be too long, what about repurposing the older content with her, like from the beginning of the show until she comes back, assuming that her stepping away isn't going to be too long?
there's nothing in this question about her coming back. So
Speak up.
the other part of it is also.
Yeah, I have something to add to this, by the way.
Go ahead, Sid.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Sid.
No, sorry, I raised my pepper a couple of times, but you guys were so
I didn't
busy on
see your
ECAM.
pepper.
Here's what I would like to suggest. Here's what I'd like to suggest for everybody, because I think this is easier. If you'd like to make a comment, can you put a 1 in the chat? That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
And that way I'll know to go back to them. But go ahead, Sid. I'm sorry I didn't see that.
No worries. And Janae had raised his pepper too. So, but what I think is it sucks to lose somebody that you're been partnering with and doing something, having a lot of fun with. But what I would encourage this person is if you love podcasting and you love creating the content, then I would make a pivot. I would make a pivot. I would not lose the momentum that you have. Either you can turn it into a solo show or you could search for a new host. I know doing a solo show is not always easy, but the other thing that you might do is bring on a special co-host for each episode. Go into your community, maybe go into your audience and tap them and say, hey, so-and-so has left the show, and I'm going to be the next several weeks, I'm going to be having guest co-hosts come on and continue the show. If you love the show, if you love producing content, I would try to figure out a way to keep doing it. But I would also encourage you to take time to grieve the loss of this, right? You just gotta let this process that a person that you're close to has left. So take a moment just to let yourself grieve and be sad about this, but don't stay there. Don't
Sid, let
stay
me
there.
Sid, let
Just
me
keep
ask
it
you
and
a
keep forward.
let me ask you a follow-up question, Sid. So one of the things that I had in my notes here today was, do we want to do a goodbye episode if the co-host is willing? And how do you handle this with the audience who's used to hearing two voices and there's a chemistry there?
I think that's a brilliant idea to do we're making a change. Like we're
To
making a
build it up.
change. One,
Yeah.
let somebody know that this person is leaving the show and give that person the opportunity to just say goodbye and why, if they want to, why they're leaving the show. And then that also allows in that same conversation, allows the host to pivot to whatever it is they're going to do next. Right. And that's a brilliant idea to have a goodbye episode or a farewell to co-hosts or something to that effect. I love.
Well, thank you, Sid. Go ahead, Junaid. I'm sorry again, I didn't see you speak up. Go ahead, Junaid.
Yeah, no problem. Sid already took what I was gonna say. So, you know, if they've built momentum, if they've got a huge community going, I mean, just look at our community, right? How has it grown? How has new people like you've come in and you've helped support, keep going the podcast morning show. So the same thing they can do because again, we've gone through this process of hey, we've got Mark out for a week, who's going to fill in. And we did this last year when he was on vacation. So that's something that we can tell him like, hey, here's something that's already worked for us. You can try it out. In fact, a friend of mine who was part of this community where they did um, scrapbooking, she was in 5 years, and then the original person wanted to let go of it. So one of the person within the community, like, I'll take over and run the whole community. And now she's passing it out to another community member, keeping that community going. So that's the same thing that she can do if she's really, really passionate about podcasting.
That's a great idea, Junaid. Great idea. Now I want to go to Dan. Dan, go ahead. You had some comments to make?
Yeah, so with momentum, it's like really, this is like a really touchy time, right? Because the audience is not sure what's going on. The host probably isn't sure what's going on. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And one thing that I found through another show that I worked on was that whenever there's uncertainty and people are thinking like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, do I want to lose this show off of my shelf because the co-host was the only reason I was listening or whatever that is? You almost want to do like schedule some re-engagement type of things. And what that basically means in marketing is here are the top 5 things that we always talk about, or the 5 audience favorite topics, and you lean into it like, well, as you know, so and so is leaving, a lot of uncertainty, but so we're going to pull back a little bit. And I just wanted to let you know about some special programming that we're going to have for the next month and a half, 2 months, however many episodes, depending on the release cadence, and say like, so next Monday, we're going to talk about thing that everyone wants to talk about. It's like been one of the biggest topics you've ever had. It's like, I don't want to say clickbaity, but feel free to be clickbaity. I mean, you just want to lead with a ton of benefit first. Like, just like, this is for you. If we're just doing something different for the next week and a half or month and a half, whatever, and then just list like the next 3, 4, 8 episodes to really like don't lose the momentum, lean heavy into why they signed up, why they started listening in the first place, and over deliver. That gives you time to figure out what you're going to do. It also gives you like, it's actually easier to do that stuff theoretically because you probably talked about it 400 billion times. Like, this stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you, Dan. I truly appreciate your comments there. Did anybody else want to comment before I have DR move on to our next question? I just wanted to say one thing here. This is my take on this, and I think you don't kill a 3-year show immediately, but you also can't pretend nothing happened either. You got to respect the departure and then test the next version and then decide what you want to do. That's one of the emotional sides of podcasting. That's a tough thing. But let's go ahead, DR. We're going to switch to our second question of the day. And this question comes to us beginners looking to get started with gear. So, DR, the floor
Right.
is yours, my friend. And just in full disclosure, DR and I were on camera together, but DR is having some camera issues. So, it's
Always.
just me on the camera today. So, you're welcome to join us live. Yeah, I sent a link to those folks. But anyway, go ahead, DR.
Okay. So a friend and I are looking to co-host our show, and we have no idea on what we need for setup. We have a space to record. We have our idea. Now we just need to get our gear together. It's worth noting that we are indeed on a budget. I've heard a lot of good things about Samsung Q2U as a budget-friendly option, but I want some other opinions before committing to anything. We're looking for a good tabletop mic that we can put between us on a table that will pick us both up clearly. Also, recommendations for recording, editing software, preferably free, would be awesome, as I have little experience there.
Yeah, I don't know about anybody else. When I read through that and they said they're going to put a tabletop microphone they're both going to share, I sort of cringed a little bit. And I said, yeah, that's going to make a challenge. What does everyone else think about that particular issue? What do you think, DR?
Well, definitely for the editing software, free Audacity is great. And, they're coming out with a new version very soon, before the end of the year, probably. So check Audacity out. As for the mics, I really don't have a whole lot of experience with my clients being in the same room with who they're interviewing. So the whole mic bleed thing, I don't have a lot of experience with mic bleed.
I'm just picturing a blue Yeti, though, in the middle of this room. I'm just saying, like, I'm being honest. Like, I'm picturing this blue Yeti on a...
Blue Yeti.
Aren't you thinking the same thing, Junaid? I'm thinking blue Yeti in the middle of a table, and the poor person that's trying to edit this, and they're going to do it themselves. It is going to be a disaster. And I mean that in a positive way. I want them to get started. But I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought, DR, but that's where my mind went.
That's where my mind went as well. So please don't buy just one. Number one, they are very, very reasonable, especially the holidays is coming up. So there's always going to be discounts around the holidays. So please keep that in mind. And what do you think about the lavaliers?
Well, I've tried them out myself. And the problem is, and I'm not an expert, but I don't think they sound as great. To me, they sound very shallow. I want to go to BC here in a second because he wanted to comment. But to me, I've tried out the lavaliers, and I think it's the size of the diaphragm, as I understand it. It just doesn't give you that rich sound that you get. We're going to go to BC now, and then Junaid, I've got you up on deck after that. Go ahead, BC.
Yeah, I agree. Unless you're going to put a whole windscreen pop filter and maybe even an isolator on a Yeti microphone, it's still going to be too sensitive. I think they want to consider the room that they have. It sounds like they at least have a room decided upon. Listen to the ambient noise. Do you want to get sound panels for the walls? Do something, get a carpet under the table, try to dampen as much of that gnat sound as possible before looking into the microphones. And I hate to suggest this because I know we're not anti-Yeti on here, but we're not pro Yeti on here either. So I would say I've seen a lot of good feedback for some, don't kill me, TikTok microphones that are on the TikTok shop, like toner microphones or Fine microphones that are supposed to be pretty good for tabletop. And they're a lot more affordable than even like a Rode Pod mic, which is like $99. Some of these on TikTok are like 55 plus. So if you're on a budget, might be an option. And then they might even want to consider learning how to do noise reduction with something like Adobe Audition, just to have a bit more control earlier on before they upgrade to either hiring a producer or getting onto Riverside, just to help them have a bit more manual quality manipulation. Those are my thoughts so far.
I want to go to Junaid and Dan, but first we have a comment in the live stream. This is from Live Stream Consultant. It says, the short answer is do not do it. Using a shareable mic is fine in a conference call situation, but in a live streaming podcasting setup, use individual mics. They can be from $40 and up. And thank you for making that comment. I think that is a very valid thing to say, but I just want to acknowledge them in the live stream because we got a few people over there joining us. But go ahead, Janae, you're up next.
As a resident home studio architect, I would recommend that they do not buy any gear at all. By the way, we're getting mic bleed through Ralph's microphone. I think it's coming through Riverside. So when I'm speaking, if Ralph, if can you mute yourself and then it won't mute, come back in, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we're actually
So
using
what I would,
eCam today, and I am muted, Janae, at this point.
okay. So what I would recommend is grab their phones and record an episode or two and see what that experience feels like. Because that's going to give them a lot of things. It's almost like you're telling somebody to go buy running shoes and they haven't even stepped outside yet, right? So you want to make sure that you're testing these things. What BC mentioned, check the room sound. Do you have flat surfaces in that room? Treat them with curtains, with rugs and whatnot. Is this an audio only podcast or are they also going to do video? So think about those things before you even step into it. Thinking about buying a microphone just because you're doing a podcast, I think is the wrong direction to even get started with. So I know as a podcaster, I'm totally saying things. Well, what? No microphone? No, because we all have microphones in our pockets in our phones. Start using that one because that's going to get you on a path of, hey, what do we even sound like and how is the conversation flowing? Right. Once you have that down, and you don't have to publish that, right? We're just doing test episodes and then go through the different software that are available. Audacity is great. I've never used it. And there's other software that you can use. Again, there's so much good stuff out there, even if they had a subscription to um, Adobe Podcast. That's going to help clean out all of that junk that might come from a bleeding in microphone because that software is getting so good. So I would say experiment, 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 publish.
Thank you, Janae. Those are very solid comments. Go ahead, Dan, you're up next.
Real quick, Janae just made a ton of points. Everyone has AI software that can clean up the voice now. What we've done multiple times, we do a travel show and we have to travel a lot and be in the same hotel room. And we just use Zoom. I think they're called handies, depending on what your budget is. It's like the H1 through the H5 or whatever. They're basically interfaces that you plug in between you, put them right between you. They have two directional mics, one facing you, one facing the other person. The microphones are right next to each other, but they do a really good job with separation. The other thing that is really neat, you just put sound cards in and you actually record both tracks at the same time. So you, in effect, you have two microphones, but one unit. And
Hey, Dan.
It's smart. Yeah.
Dan, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Can you bring your level up a little bit? Because everybody's saying your level is pretty low.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Let me see here.
I noticed it too, but I thought it was just me.
Does that help?
Not really. If you can bring it up a little bit more, just, and I know it's going to sound funny, but I can't do it from this end. It seems like it's coming from your side.
Okay. My input level is jacked all the way up here. That's weird.
It sounds like he's way away from his mic.
Yeah, it does sound like that, but.
Oh, hold on a second. Another thing you could do is like make sure you're on the right microphone.
Oh, see, this is a great time to talk about this, right, Dan?
Yes. Number one, don't listen to me when it comes, if we're talking about microphones, don't listen to me. So everything I just said, yeah, I don't know. Club Deck just switched my microphone for some reason. I was on my headphone microphone. Is this better now?
It sounds a little bit better. Go ahead, Dan. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want everybody to be able to hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So there's Zoom handy recorders, H5, H1, H, whatever your budget can take. It's good for a couple of reasons. Like I said, there are two microphones on this one unit. You can plug it in, put it right on the table in the middle of you. They do a pretty decent job of separating, but the cool thing is that you're also recording via track. So you're going to have, like, you put a SD card in and everyone's going to be on their own track, which is obviously going to help you with everything because everyone will be on their own track. There's still going to be a little bit of mic bleed, but if you have the SD file or the card, you can go in and deal with it. And I was just saying that Junaid is totally right about everyone can basically have AI software that can, you can take a crappy mic and turn it into something pretty decent.
Well, thank you, Dan. I know DR has a comment she'd like to make.
Yeah. So when it comes to the Adobe Voice Enhance, please pay for that one. Don't go for the cheap, don't go for the free one because it's leveled up all the way to 100, and that's not ideal. If you can pay, I think it's like $115 or something like that, but it comes out to be a little less, a little more than $8 a month. And it is so worth it. You can adjust the levels. When you pay for it, you can adjust all the levels, and it really makes a big, big difference.
DR, what did you say that was called again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I think that's Adobe Enhance.
Adobe Enhance, okay.
If you pay for that, you also have access to Adobe Studio as well. So you can, that's your, that'll be your editing station as well. And also, you didn't ask for this, but you did mention that you and your friend are thinking about doing this podcast together. So I always say, please, please, please have an agreement, a written agreement between the two of you. What happens if one of you gets sick? What happens if you get in a fight? What happens, who does this belong to? Who's responsible for doing what? So please have something written between the two of you.
Very valid point. Well, let's go ahead. Does anybody else want to comment on this? If not, we've got 3 more questions, and let's go on to the next question, DR. So if you want to go to our question 3, this one is really interesting. The one I teased yesterday about hand signals. So go ahead, DR.
Yep. It says, I just got back from witnessing and being a part of the most unhinged podcast editing session in my life. And I need to know if I'm losing my mind or if this is actually as insane as it feels. So here's the setup. Small room, multiple cameras, guest, host, co-host, plus a center wide. I'm not sure what a center wide is. Okay, cramped table, host's wife also sitting there, no space to reposition anything. The client is extremely specific, wants a perfectly clean show, no ums, no pauses, natural conversation flow. They sat next to the editor for 2 hours, critiquing every single word, sentence, and transition live. The moment that broke me, this is the writer saying, the moment that broke me, the guest uses his hands when he talks. At one point, his hand briefly covered part of his face. I didn't flag it as a distraction because it's a human being gesturing naturally. The client pulled me aside and said, I should have stopped that live recording, interrupted the conversation, and told the guest to use his left hand instead of his right. That way the hand wouldn't block his face. I asked, how is he supposed to know that? Their answer, that's your job to catch and correct. Oh my God, this client sounds like a client from hell. That's your job to catch and correct in the moment. Now the kicker, Caleb and I guess that's the editor. Caleb and I agree that the only real fix is moving the cameras, but the room is too small. We suggested alternatives like higher tripods, digital crops, losing the dedicated guest cam. Client shot down every single one because they're very specific about their shots. So instead of accepting physics, they blame me for not babysitting the guest's handedness. Am I crazy for thinking this is insane? Editors, have you ever had a client this deep in the perfectionism rabbit hole? How do you handle it without getting fired? And seriously, do I need a left hand only clause in my next contract or should I just run? I say run.
Let's go ahead and go to Sid. He was first, then we'll go to BC and Janae. But go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, this is a very interesting listening to this. My first reaction, as somebody who runs a business, not every client is the right client for you. Based on everything that I've heard without knowing all the situation, I would fire the client. This does not sound like a client I would want to work with, and their expectations exceed what's possible. And it's time to say this client's not worth it. Let's go find three more to replace this income. So I would fire the client.
I think that is
It
well
kind of
said,
sounds
Sid.
like they've never worked with any kind of editing, any kind of situation like this. Is That's what it sounds like, that the clients are new to this as well.
It does sound that way, but I think that's very valid point, Sid. Even in my practice, I've had to fire clients that we didn't get along, and it's okay to do that. But let's go ahead. Thank you, Sid, by the way. Go ahead, BC. I know you have a comment about claustrophobia too, I see here.
Yeah, listening to the description of the very tight space, my claustrophobia was definitely being triggered by the story set up there. I want to know if this person, it sounds like they either didn't do a discovery call with the person, or if they did, this client had a great facade during the discovery call, because I wish this person would have gotten some kind of hint of this cray cray well before having to enter that space, with that very cramped space with these people. Also, I also had to wonder, with the specificities that they had, is the host's wife like a former uh, set manager on like a television set, and they're trying to like relive the good old days because they were fired? Like, all these specificities with like the left hand, not the right hand, covering their mouth thing. It's like, it almost seems like they kind of know what they're talking about, but again, the demand is just way beyond what the scope of this project looks like.
Very good point, BC. I want to go to Janaid, and then Nikki has a question as well. But go ahead, Janaid.
I think the main wide camera is just capturing both of the people speaking on there, and they have two additional cameras. So it's like a three-camera setup recording, sounds like. And what it means is that the hand gesture, blah, blah, blah. I think he's better off firing this client, like Sid said, because if the editor or the client has so many comments about editing, maybe they should be editing the episode. I mean, why did they even hire an expert, right? And that's what I say when I'm working with clients. Like, hey, if you have so many requests, why don't you do it? Because I've been doing it for ages, but maybe you could do it better than I can.
I think that's a brilliant point, man. I have that in my accounting practice. Sometimes people will say, "Hey, let me take a look at what you did." I'm like, "Well, you hired me to be the professional." So I think that's very good advice, but very good point. Nikki, Tide Tutoring, aka Nikki, you're on deck. Go ahead and let us know what you're thinking.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. I had an interesting experience last night. I've had a really good podcast cast of people that have come on my show and shared some amazing insights. And I've always done the pre-interview like you guys have suggested. I thought that was a great way to vet people. And sometimes every once in a while, I always catch myself kicking myself because every once in a while my intuition will ping and it'll say, do not put this person on your show. And I'll be like, okay. And sometimes I'll dismiss it and sometimes I won't, but I always have to stick to my guns. I know that now. So anyway, I had this lady on my show last night, and thank God it's not live, it's all pre-recorded. Well, she was a mindset coach, a personal growth coach, life coach type thing. And I started asking her some questions, and it was pretty evident about 15 minutes into the conversation that she didn't actually have any level of expertise. And so I knew that from the pre-interview. I could feel that, I could sense it, but I said, well, maybe, I doubted myself. Well, it was obvious once the show was filming and recording. So I started asking her some questions, easier questions to try to help her get into a rhythm, where she could talk about some things that she did know about. Well, anyway, she, about probably 25 minutes in, she just stopped mid interview, like completely stopped. And she says, I have to go. And I was like, okay. And then she left Zoom. And then that was it. And I was sort of bum puzzled in a way. I've never had that happen before. I was wondering if anybody in this space has ever had that happen. I know some of you guys bring guests on, Have you ever had a situation where somebody comes on your show, they say they're something, but they're not, and then and then you find out like mid-show that they're not who they said they were, and then they just sort of cut out on you? I thought it was interesting.
What a great story. And Sid, I'm going to go to you in a second. I actually had a situation where I was on someone else's show. They were hosting it, and they apparently were recording the video from a library. And I guess they had used this room. Well, about halfway into the interview, somebody knocks on the door and says, "You got to get out of here. Your time is spent." It's not exactly the same situation, Nikki, but I feel for you. That's a tough situation to be in. And I guess my clean takeaway from that is, I guess, trust your intuition next time and just be like, I don't think this is going to work. But go ahead, Sid. I see you wanted to have a comment on that.
Yeah, Nikki, feel for you. I mean, I've never actually had that exact situation happen, but it, sounds like it was a blessing, right? That she abruptly ended the show. So now you really don't feel like you have to publish it. But what has happened to me is I have a pre-call with somebody and their energy is really good. They're exciting. They're just sharing a lot of value in the pre-call. And we get totally a different person shows up. I'm like, where are you? Where's the person that I did the pre-call with? Where's your energy? Where's your excitement level? That's happened to me a couple of times. And that's so frustrating because you pre person, that's who's going to show up and then they don't. And then I had somebody that he just couldn't stop talking. He did not do that in the pre-call. And he took a question, took him 7 minutes to answer the question. I finally interrupted him and I said, "Hey, my audience expects us to have a conversation, and you took 7 minutes to answer that question. And I need us to be able to go back and forth. So let's take a deep breath. I know you're nervous. I know you're kind of excited about what the potential impact to you can be for your business, but let's take a deep breath and let's just have a conversation." So I think the messaging there is there's likely always going to be guest related issues come up, I don't think we can avoid it.
No, thank you, Sid. And I want to mention what Julie put in the chat. She said, "You should play the episode and add your own commentary. It would be fascinating." Yeah, that would be fascinating. I'm not sure how the guests would like that to play out, but does anybody else want to make a comment? If not, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next question. Well, go ahead, DR. Let's move on to our next question. This one is about transitions.
Yeah. So it says, I'm at a stage where I've edited my audio, but it's lacking a nice transition because it jumps straight into talking introduction. I have a pre-recorded intro and outro, which will remain consistent, but it's just not enough when I listen to the edited episode. The obvious answer would be a few seconds of intro and outro music, but I'm open to other ideas as it's been extremely difficult for me to find music that I don't have to pay for. I want to comment on that, by the way, for that fits the rhythm of my speech. Any ideas are welcome on the below topics. Number one, finding music that fits, like the vibe, the speed of speech, etc. Number two, finding music that you don't have to pay for. Podcast is a hobby and I'm not making money from it. Number three, alternative transitions that don't involve music. Well, Audio Jungle is a fantastic platform. You can set the amount of money that you want to pay. It could be $5, it could be $2. You can set the amount, you can set the rhythm that you want, like the count, the beat count. It's an amazing, you can get very, very specific for very little money. So that is my suggestion. Audio Jungle. And yeah.
Is that a subscription platform, DR?
It is not. It is not. I don't have a subscription to it, and I go to it whenever I need to. But again, it's, you pay one time for, a little jingle here and there. So
okay, so it's like a la carte thing. You pay for the jingle that you want to use, and then you move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can set the amount that you want to pay, like the range. I want to pay anywhere from $2 to $10, and I want it upbeat, and I want it, you have all of these different kind of requirements that you set. So it's a great platform.
Awesome. Go ahead, BC. I see you want to make a comment, and then we're going to go to Sid.
Yeah, expanding on that too, assuming that she's uploading her content to YouTube, YouTube Studio has an entire audio library with where you can section things out by mood, genre, length, words in the titles. So lots of options there. I would say don't just put a few seconds of music for transition, add a whole music bed to the opener and learn the beauty of an L cut. Learn the beauty of L cuts and J cuts, and it'll really amplify the quality of your show. And let's say she's even using, I don't know if she mentioned what she's using for production, but if she happens to be using, say, was it CapCut? CapCut also comes with its own audio library. And most of these things, like with Audio Jungle, don't require attribution. You just plop it on, you add that magic, and you're good to go.
So, BC, for the newer podcasters out there, you mentioned a couple of words here that we might have to put on the jargon wheel. Can you explain? L cut, did you say? So explain those two things.
Yes, so L-cut and J-cut, they're named that way because of how they look visually when you're making them. So an L-cut is when the audio from a previous shot or scene flows into the next scene. So it kind of like it allows you to move into the next scene with a bit of the previous scene trickling in and out. Then a J-cut is the opposite. You're coming towards the end of a scene, and then the sound from the next scene intrudes on the audio before the visual actually cuts to the next shot. So it's sorry about that broadcast undergrad term that I threw in there. Were those the only two, DR?
I think so. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Attribution. Are we good on attribution? We good there?
Oh, let's do it.
So attribution for new podcasters basically is whether or not you have to, if you use music or some kind of artistic property from another artist. Attribution is when you have to give them their dues on whatever you're using them for. So if you happen to find a piece of audio music on YouTube Studio that requires attribution, it'll actually give you a paragraph talking about the artist, when they made it, a bit more about the artist profile that you have to include, say, in your YouTube description for the video you use their music in.
Thank you, BC.
Thank you.
Let's go to Sid. Sid, go ahead.
There have been some great tips here already about this. So you can Google free podcast music, and there'll be several places to come up. That's how I found my music. And we've had the same music, and we use it in a couple of different ways. We've looped it before, all those things, and we just in the bottom of the landing page and the bottom of the show notes, there's a little sentence attribution where we got the music, who it's from, the link to the website, all that kind of stuff. And it's just like one sentence. So it was free, and I think there are lots of resources to get free music that you can cut up and add to your show. So I would encourage you to search for it.
That's a very great point. And Jessica put in the chat, SoundLab is free and has an audio editor. You can upload your sound and edit it, fade it in or out. It also has a compressor feature too. And my takeaway from this one is they said they're a hobbyist. And that's a tough spot to be in if you think about it, because they probably don't want to spend a lot of money. And it's easy to go find stuff to spend money, but I think we've all given them some great ideas. So let's go ahead and move on to our final question so that we have time for wins of the week. So go ahead, DR.
I'm on Clubhouse, so I'm maneuvering the mic. Okay. The last question is, I think podcast hosts notice different things than listeners do. Sometimes I have been realizing lately is that podcast hosts and wait a minute. Something I have noticed realizing lately is that podcast hosts and listeners often seem to judge episodes completely differently. As a host, it is easy to obsess over things like missed question, a rough transition, a moment where you lost your train of thought, or something you wish you had said differently. But when I talk to people about podcasts they enjoy, they rarely mention any of that. They usually remember an interesting story, a strong opinion, a funny moment, or something that made them think. It makes me wonder how much time podcasters spend worrying about things that listeners barely notice. Curious if others have experienced this. Have you ever disliked an episode you made only to find out listeners ended up enjoying it?
I think this is a
But you
great
know,
question.
I think this is in every aspect of life. You know, if you are a banker, you're going to notice a teller when you go into another bank. You're going to notice a teller who does her job really, really well. Gosh, I really like the way you counted out those $5 bills. You know, you're just going to notice things differently no matter what genre you're talking about.
Yeah, so let me ask the room. Has anybody hated an episode they made and the listeners liked it, or vice versa? Go ahead, Sid. I see you want to comment.
Yeah, this has happened to me so many times. Like I'll record an episode and go, oh man, that's just not going to turn out real. That's not going to turn out good. And then I go listen to it and I'm like, oh wow, that's actually a really great episode. I'm pinging my editor back and forth like, this one's going to need some work. This is not really good. And then it turns out great. And then when I listen to, because I listen to every episode before it publishes, and then I'll be listening to it and I try to put my listener ear on, right? But it's really hard because I'll be like, well, dang, you should ask this follow-up question. Why didn't you go deeper on that particular topic? And I've had episodes that I had one a few weeks ago, I think was really good. In fact, I would put it at the top of my list for best episodes this year, but it did not land well with my audience at all. And so it's just, I mean, this is a journey and a roller coaster I'm not sure you're ever going to get off of, right? Because as the creator, you're always going to be critiquing, but you can't necessarily think the way your audience thinks. So it's definitely a roller coaster ride.
I love that analogy too, Sid. Roller coaster. We're going to go to BC and then we're going to go to Dan. Go ahead, BC.
Yeah, I got a couple that I hate. One of them was due to a tech issue that I didn't realize was happening in the moment. Something happened with the SD card to where it only caught literally every other 5 seconds of our spoken audio. So in post, thankfully I had a camera recording. I had to go in post and use the camera's audio to fill in all those gaps for a 1 hour conversation, and I couldn't get the guests back. This was the second attempt at recording, and they were done trying to reschedule. So it's still out there, and I'll even share it if anyone wants to. But it's just really bad. You hear the back and forth Roadcaster camera audio, and I still hate it so much. But the other one, I guess I should say that I hate is the one that got me fired a couple of years ago. But on the other hand, that got some of the highest numbers in the history of my show, so I know at least everyone else was eating it up.
Yeah, that's the way it works, isn't it? It's BC. Go ahead, Dan, you're up. And then we're going to move into our wins of the week here in just a minute or two.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter what you think or your co-host thinks, because someone's listening for the first time. They're going to like it or they're not going to like it. And no matter what, somebody's going to hate it and somebody's going to love it. Like, it's ridiculous. One thing that is a little bit related to that what Sid said kind of reminded me about this. When you actually go into the real world and you meet your people, and they say, oh, well, I really loved this episode. You don't want to say, oh God, that one sucked. You know what I mean? Because it's like really easy to do that. If they loved it and they're telling you they loved it, you should always be like, oh, this is awesome. I'm really happy you said that. What we were trying to do was blah, 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 blah. It's ultimately what the listener experiences, and it's not usually what you take out of it. My co-host and I argue about this all the time. When we record something, might be like, oh God, this sucked. When I edit it, I'll be like, Jen, you're way wrong. This was an awesome episode. And then she'll listen to it and be like, oh, this was like our best episode ever. So hopefully you'll have more of that type of thing. But yeah, I don't know.
Very good point, Dan. I just want to read two comments. Sambaza put, I have also had the same experience when I look at Show and Say that it wasn't all that great in the letter. I have so many reviews on it that are positive. And Jessica said, podcasting is its own art form. The challenge is that we judge our podcast by rigid standards of perfect without appreciating the unique West the medium works. The impact matters more than the polish. And Tide says, we are our own harshest critics. And I agree with all of that. I think the thing that we have to take away from this, and I actually took a different angle on this. I thought they were more talking about the audio quality. And I think it was Daniel J. Lewis. And actually, he's going to join us on the show Tuesday, by the way. But he said something in his last podcast. He says, maybe you listen to your podcast without headphones on. Because he said you'll hear things with headphones that you don't hear otherwise. But I thought that was a really good point. Does anybody else want to make a comment before we move on to our wins from the week? All right, then we are going to go to our wins of the week. Well, this is your time to share your wins of the week. I will get started, then I'm going to go down the list here. I'm going to be leaving here soon after we get done this live show. I'm going to be getting to an airport here in Philadelphia, and I'm flying to Houston, Texas to see my little grandbaby Carson. My wife and I are super excited, so please keep us in your thoughts. But that is my big win of the week, a healthy, happy grandson. My daughter-in-law got admitted to the hospital 2 days ago. I'm happy to report she was released last night, so everybody is doing well. So, Junaid, I'm going to come to you for your win of the week next, and then we'll just go down the list here if that's cool with everybody. Well, I may have said, there we go, Junaid.
Works for me. So my win of the week, I got to launch my podcast software Podglue yesterday on my 50th birthday. So those were my...
Sorry about that, Junaid. Can you do that over again? That is my own sloppiness and Ecamm hitting the button too many times. Go ahead and start over, Junaid. We'll edit that out in the final.
Absolutely. My win of the week, I got to celebrate my 50th birthday yesterday and launch my Podglue software operating system for podcasters yesterday on a 3-hour live stream. I got a ton of activity in the comments. I got to showcase the software that I've been building. And on top of that, I also released the album that's associated with Podglue because, Podglue solves certain problems that I was having. And those are things that I captured in music form as well. So 700 conversations nobody did, or best guest ever. Like, those are some of the episode or songs that I also got to play on the live stream. So that was a lot of fun. And I think I'm going to do more of these live streams showcasing the software and asking people to join me coming, next few weeks.
Thank you, Junaid. And podglue.com, correct? I believe it is podglue.com.
Absolutely. That's podglue.com. And anybody who's a podcast host and wants to streamline their process, come join the wait list, and I will enter you or add you to the software so you can go play around with it. Thank you.
Dan, we're going to come to you. Do you have a win of the week you'd like to share with everybody?
We officially wrapped up season 10 of Bandcamp. We start season 11 on Tuesday. And I reached out a few months ago to a bunch of various publications and just found out yesterday we're getting some major press in something in the UK, some huge daily newspaper, and then some huge podcasting literature newsletter type of thing. So it's pretty cool.
Congratulations, Dan, and thank you for sharing that. BC, you are up, my friend. Let's go ahead and go to Nikki. Do you want to share a win of the week?
Yeah, just thinking one of the biggest wins that I had was I run some ads in the middle of my podcast for all different kinds of things that I'm doing. And one of my podcasts had a great and easy segue into a book that I had edited alongside my client. And we were able to sell, a nice little chunk of copies of the book, I believe, from that one ad in the podcast. So it was really cool to see that.
Well, congratulations, Nikki. That's fantastic. DR, I'm going to go to you, and then we'll go back to BC if he has a win he wants to share.
Yeah, I do have a win. Sid, I do have a win, Sid. Okay, yeah, he's not even on here anymore. So anyway, for the past several weeks, my husband's truck has been in the truck hospital. Everything went wrong with it. So yesterday, my husband went to go get a new car, and we now have a new car. We're proud owners of a beautiful 2023 Camry, and it makes us look like such classy people when you drive past our driveway now. Thank you.
I thought that one was appropriate because it's not only a celebration, but a little bit of a car horn there too. So That's
Yeah,
fantastic. Well,
excellent. Thank you.
thank you, DR. Before we close out, does anybody else want to share a win? It looks like BC has a win to share, and then we'll be wrapping it up a couple minutes early today.
Yeah, most of my big projects right now are kind of in the wait, so I'm going to hold off on any big updates there. But I will say at the very least, it's going to be up in the 80s today, going up to the 90s this weekend. It's going to be a nice pool weekend, so I'm going to take that for my win.
Very good, BC. And I just want to thank everybody for all your support today. I think we had a great show answering some great real mailbag questions of people just like us who started or we've been through these struggles as podcasters. So I just want to wish everybody a great weekend. Make sure you join us Monday. Monday, I'm going to do a Money Monday, and then I'll give you a little preview. On Tuesday, we're going to have Daniel J. Lewis. Daniel J. Lewis has been in podcasting for a very long time. He's going to talk about two things. He's going to talk about Podgagement, and he's also going to talk about his other project, which is called Pod Chapters. We'll do our Wednesday news, and then joining us Thursday is going to be Dave Jackson. And Dave is going to talk about how to prepare well for an interview from the host perspective, what you should research so that you're not just showing up with I'm not sure what I'm going to ask you questions. He's going to dig in to how to really ask the best questions and how to build your research before you get started. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to wish you a super wonderful weekend, and I'm going to go catch a plane and go see my grandbaby. So thank you so much for everybody who joined us today, and I will look forward to seeing you again on Monday. Thank you, everybody.